My name is Christine Billups, and this is my story. Sadly, some parents, including myself and my husband David, find themselves faced with the ultimate tragedy of planning the best possible death for their son or daughter. Our story started on the 13th of May 2017, when Luke was diagnosed with an inoperable glioblastoma, an extremely aggressive and incurable brain cancer, situated in his frontal lobe and crossing both hemispheres of his brain. In the following 7 months, we watched our beautiful, intelligent, wonderful 27-year-old son suffer the horror and degradation of this horrendous disease as he lost the ability to function physically and mentally in the most cruel way. When it became clear that Luke wasn't responding to the treatment and was becoming increasingly confused and debilitated, his oncologist made the decision to contact Rotherham Hospice, who set about organising his palliative care programme. Our first visitor from the hospice was Louise. We sat and we cried in disbelief that it had come to this. The word hospice is synonymous with death and dying, isn't it? We were still trying to process how our world had managed to shift on its axis when only a few short months earlier, our golden boy, our mountain climber, our marathon runner, who had a degree in business management and a great job as a business development manager. He literally had the world at his feet, and he was now totally dependent on us for the most basic requirements of daily life. Louise quietly assured me and insisted that Luke's care would be undertaken with the utmost respect and compassion, and him and his family's best interests would be at heart at all times. It was a few days later when I realised that we certainly did need help, and that it would be Luke who would suffer without it. So I picked up the phone and I called the number that Louise had left, and within a couple of hours we were visited by two of the loveliest nurses that you could possibly imagine. During the Christmas period and the New Year of 2018, the Hospice at Home team became our absolute and total lifeline. We had shut down our home to visitors as Luke was by now so dreadfully ill. In the midst of the horror of watching our son concede to the relentless ravages of brain cancer, the Hospice at Home team became our rock of support. I cannot even bring myself to contemplate what we would have done without them and how we could have given Luke the help he needed. The personal care that Luke received was amazing, and I was always invited to be involved. The team became our pillar of strength. They genuinely cared that Luke was as comfortable as they could possibly make him. As he gradually slipped into unconsciousness, they gave us some light in the darkest days of our lives. They smiled and they listened patiently to our stories, and they looked at the photographs we showed them of the beautiful young man that Luke had been just a few short months before he was struck down by this evil disease. There were many days when we couldn't muster the strength to communicate, and on those days when we were down on our knees, they got down beside us and held us while we broke our hearts. Shortly before Luke died, Joanne, who had held our hand from the very start, came to see us and gently made sure that we were aware that the end was close and prepared us for the forthcoming days. Our main focus was that Luke would not suffer, and she took the time to explain how he would be kept pain-free during this time. We really did see her as our angel through all this, and we still do. On the day Luke died, Gavin, his nurse, stayed with us at our request to ensure that Luke's passing was peaceful. To this day and forevermore, our hearts burst with gratitude for how he helped us, myself, Luke's dad and his big brother, through these hours as the dawn broke on the 10th of January 2018 and Luke finally let go of his life and gave up the battle that he could never have won. Gavin left us quietly, and Helen replaced him as he'd stayed with us well beyond the end of his shift, and we shared some time together with Luke as a family, and Helen gently guided us through the following hours and procedures. So you see, I look back on Luke's illness and subsequent death with absolute total shock and horror. But the one thing I take consolation in is the care that Luke was given by the Rotherham Hospice at Home team. Because of them and their wonderful staff, Luke was able to remain at home with us, in his own home, surrounded by all his familiar things, his beloved dog Jeff, and his loving family constantly by his side. And he was able to endure the very worst of illnesses with his dignity still intact. Luke David Billups was a truly wonderful young man. A man any mother would be proud to call her son.